Alright everyone, we are here. Cameras on please. Your cameras are on and facing you please. Tina, can't see you. Ahmed, I see Zelene. Francesca, where's your camera? Ah, there you go. Alright, Danielle, I see you. Arlene, where are you? I see Denise, Ed, Brandon. We got Fabiola as well. We got Shanice and Lula. Camera. Alright. Tina, you don't need to get drunk before the class. Don't worry about it. Wait until the end. Anybody has questions? If you got questions. Yala is waving. No, hold on. Can't see. I can't see what it says there. Can it text me what it says? I'm gonna show you guys what you got. Like for you can't get into Zoom from your computer. I don't know why. This is the best view that I get from you guys. You guys understand? I'm just gonna share in the group real quick. You guys understand what I see in real life. Says host has another meeting in progress. Okay, so you're in the wrong link. That's what it is. Did you go through? Did I lose you? Daniela, did you go through the website, the Zoom portal? That's the one I'm linked in right now. This way you guys can see exactly what I see. I just shared a video. All right, so Daniela, are you were you able to get in? Okay, cool. All right, gotcha. So if you guys open up the image, you see I can kind of see you, but not 100%. Right? When you're talking to the people, I can see you. When you're not at home or not at work, I can see you. When you're driving a car, I can see you, and stuff like that. Jackie laughs. All right, make sure all your cameras are on, please. Very important. All right, there's no questions regarding the previous chapters. Anything you want to address before we start? Got 2 people watching on YouTube. You still don't know how I stand the whole time? Yeah. Don't worry, during the break I sit down a little bit. For those 10 minutes, that's what I do. Sit down, relax. But that was not related to the previous chapter, but I appreciate it, Tina. All right, let's see. We got Miguel just joined us. See, Richard joined us. What's up? All right, good. Let's start. YouTubers, I see 3 people watching. If you guys have questions, chime in. We're gonna break this into 2 days. It's just 1 chapter, so you'll assume that I'll be able to. Hey, Ruth. You'd assume that I'll be able to do it in 1 day, right? But because there's so much information to learn about financing, and I'll give you the best example. In the previous book that I was using, this was divided into 3 chapters. There was the mortgage, financing 1, and financing 2. In this book, they put it all into 1 chapter. And even like that, I also contacted the publisher. They forgot to mention one thing because the publisher is from a different state. So there's one thing that shows up in the New Jersey exams that they did not have. But I will explain that to you guys later when we get to that point, which will be tomorrow. All right. So what they did is because of my complaint and a few other instructors, they made an adjustment, so an additional page that I have to share with you guys tomorrow. All right. So real estate finance. We're going to talk about mortgages, obviously, because for real estate finance usually comes with a security. That security is called a mortgage. So it's very important you guys understand what this word means. Before I do anything in this book, or in this chapter, I'm sorry, I need you guys to understand this word, mortgage, right? And who is the mortgagor, who's the mortgagee? So who's the one that creates the mortgage and who's the one that benefits from the mortgage, all right? So for that, we're going to go here. Got a lot of explanations here, as you can tell. This is what goes into the videos, by the way, the Q&A videos that I do. Sometimes I have longer explanations here. Mortgage, we are here. And believe it or not, I had it ready. I touched something, I lost it somewhere. All right, we're getting there. Here we go. So, the word mortgage. So for the word mortgage, we need to divide this into, and make sure you have a piece of paper so you can take notes. The word mortgage, we need to divide it into 2 parts. The first part is mort, M-O-R-T. Now, what does mort stand for? Does anybody know? It's a Latin word. So any Latin-based language will talk about this word or use variables of this word. And it means, yep, death. All right, great. So the next word is gauge. Now, when we engage, so it's not gauge like measurement, is gauge like engage in something, right? When you engage in something, you are making a commitment, right? You're making a promise, correct? Okay. So gauge could mean, sorry, let me just separate for now. Could mean pledge or grip. Gauge could mean pledge or grip, right? So pretty much if you have a mortgage, not bad. You have a death pledge. You promise to die, right? That's what a mortgage is. I promise to die before I can afford to pay off this loan, right? But no, it's not you, guys. It's not you. It's until the death of the loan. Until the death of the loan. That's what mort means. Until the death of the loan, the bank has a grip on the property that you pledged as security. So what you said to the bank was, bank, I would like to buy this house, right? And I don't have the money. Would you lend me money? The bank says, yes, I will lend you money under one condition. I'll lend you the money. I'll let you go into the house for the next 30 years. But if you fail to pay, we can come in, take the house, right? So pretty much we said, this is the collateral that we're telling the bank, hey, I pledge this collateral to you, take it, right? And if I fail to pay, it's yours. Simple. So the bank for the next 30 years has a grip on that property that is yours. That grip, we call it lien, right? And by now everybody has to know what a lien is, right? A lien is a financial claim against the property, and therefore mortgage is a lien because it's a financial claim against the property that you pledged as security. Now, what happens in mortgages, guys, different than vehicles, right? Cars, or different than unsecured loans as well. What happens with mortgages is they cannot come and repo your property, your house, right? If you don't pay, what can they do? They foreclose. So they cannot come with a tow truck and say, hey, we're towing the property, the house. They cannot do that. So for them to be able to foreclose, they're going to go to court with a document that says, I'm the one entitled to collect the house if the homeowner does not pay, or the borrower does not pay. You understand? So there's a document called mortgage that represents the house. So this equals this. Now, my question to you is, who pledged the house? Who pledged the house as collateral? Let me know in the chat. Because we're going to spend some time in this. So if you guys don't understand this, the rest of the chapter is pretty much going to be meaningless. You need to understand who pledges the house. Let me know in the chat, please. Who pledges the house? Waiting. YouTubers, there's 3 people. Let me know. Who pledges the house? Who promises the house as collateral? Okay. We get some answers after several thoughts here. The owner, the buyer, the owner. Okay. Everybody else? The buyer. Okay. Apparently you guys are kind of like all in agreement, but the owner could be the seller. You don't know. Right? The buyer might not be the borrower. We don't know. But traditionally, it is the buyer who is the borrower. Ah. Ruth says lender, and then, no, I'm wrong. Delete. All right, so common mistake, because the way I'm asking the question is a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier because I'm saying who promises or pledges the property as collateral. And obviously, it is the borrower or the buyer that's pledging the property as collateral for the loan they're about to get. But let's see, what if I ask you now, and we're going to go over that later. What if I ask you now, who is the mortgagor? Let me know in the chat, who is the mortgagor? Celine says the bank. Ahmed says the bank. He says the lender. Lula says the homeowner. Ed says the lender. Ruth says the owner. Who else? Miguel says the borrower. Okay, cool. We got mixed feelings over here. everybody here was pretty much in agreement that the person or the party that pledges the property was the buyer, the owner, or the borrower, right? But then when I ask who the mortgagor was, you guys say the bank. See, the mortgagor, or the one who pledges the property, are one and the same. Green Campbell, borrower, correct. It's the owner. Mortgagor is the owner. I'm gonna give you guys an easy way to remember this in a little bit, okay? So let's go over here. When you finance a property, there's two documents that are prepared. Two documents. One is the mortgage, and the other one is called a promissory note, which is pretty much saying, or a bond, which is pretty much saying, I owe you money, right? The mortgage, which is that document that represents the house, right? The collateral, right? The mortgage is the pledge or grip. Write this down somewhere. It's the pledge or grip. If it's the pledge or grip, then the mortgage equals the collateral or the security. The word mortgage is a document that means house, collateral, security, car, whatever it is used as security becomes the mortgage. Okay? In this case, it's the house, because they have a lien on the house. So that's why you need to remember that mortgage represents the house. Write this down somewhere. Mortgage represents the house. All right? So now this will help you a little bit. If mortgage represents a house, who gives up or who pledges the house? It's the borrower that's about to buy the house, so potentially the buyer, right? It's about to become the owner of the house. They're saying, bank, please take my property in exchange for money. Now, how is the bank taking the property? I'm just recapping. How is the bank taking the property? Through a paper. Over the next 30 years, I get to use the property, occupy the property, right? Maintain the property, pay taxes for the property, right? And the bank has this paper, which they have a grip on for the next 30 years. That paper represents the house. That paper is a lien. So the mortgage is a lien, okay? The other document is the promissory note or a bond. It's the promise to pay. So there's two separate documents. One is the house, which is the mortgage. The other one is the loan, which is the money. The promissory note is a promise to pay. I owe you. Promise to pay something. So promissory note represents the loan. If it represents the loan, then it's the money. Okay, let me zoom out real quick so you guys understand. The mortgage equals house. Promissory note equals money. You gave up the house in exchange for money to pay the seller. Sorry. All right. That is pretty much it for now. I'm gonna go back to this. So that was mortgage. If you have any questions, drop them now. All right. So we're going to talk about the mechanics here. Sorry. Sorry, I had a question coming through. A student trying to log in. Sorry about that. Can you explain the purpose of the promissory note? Why do you need both? Because one represents the loan, and the other one represents the house. So, we're going to go over this as well. But think about it this way: when you go to the bank, you're asking the bank for money, right? If you get a loan, you're asking them for money. Forget the house. You're just going there and say, hey, I need money for to buy a car. I need money to buy furniture. I need money to pay medical bills. I need money to whatever you need money for. You're going to go to the bank and say, hey, I need money. That creates a promissory note, because if the lender lends you money, right, you have to sign something that says, I promise to pay, right? What we're going to go over in this chapter is that the promise to pay is just because you borrowed money. But because it's a secured loan, secured by the house, the bank is saying you're getting this loan because of this house. So if you don't pay on this loan, we're going to get the house. The house is the mortgage. So there's a separate document to identify which house are we talking about. So 2 separate documents there. One identifies the amount that you borrowed, and the other one identifies, and the terms, and the other document identifies the house that you borrowed against. And in case of default, they come get the house, right? By a foreclosure or auction. Okay, so let's talk about anatomy of mortgage lending. So we're going to start with mechanics of a loan transaction. I'm going to go as slow as possible, guys. One of those chapters where I'm not skipping stuff, okay? So, it is common to use borrowed money to purchase real estate. When a borrower gives a note promising to repay the borrowed money and executes a mortgage on the real estate for which the money is being borrowed as a security. The financing method is called mortgage financing. Now, the term mortgage financing also applies to real estate loans secured by a deed of trust. We'll talk about that later. And the process of securing a loan by pledging the property without giving up ownership of the property is called hypothecation. So let's start with this crazy word. Every time you see hypothecation, it's this. Let's say, let's go back to, click something here, hold on. Let's go back to the example of you need money, okay? So before FICO scores, before we had a credit score, you would go to the bank and the bank would say, okay, let me analyze your credit. Let me look at your loan, what we're trying to borrow. Do you have anything that I can use as collateral? And you'll be like, okay, I have jewelry, right? I have computers, I have mice. I have anything that you think is worth value. I'll just bring it for you to give me the loan. Because look, unfortunately, you cannot pay your bills by going there and saying, hey, I would like to pay the electricity bill and here's a mouse, right? You can't do it. You need cash, right? So you would trade in everything you have in the house into cash. You turn it into cash. Nowadays, we find these more in pawn shops, right? When you go to the bank, they look at your credit. Pawn shops, they look at what you got, right? So, okay, we have, I see you got a mouse, you got a phone. What else do you have? Like, do you have a watch? Do you have a chain? Do you have jewelry? You want $1,000? I'll give you $1,000. But you got to give me $2,000 or $1,800 worth of stuff for me to give you a loan. So what is happening here is by you giving to the bank, they're keeping it until you pay it off. And then they return to you, the property, they return to you once you finish paying it off. Hypothecation is the opposite. Hypothecation is you go to the bank and say, hey, bank, I want to buy a car. But bank, I want to drive that car out of the lot today. I don't want to buy the car and give you stuff. No, I'm going to use the car as collateral, and I want to drive it out of the parking lot today, the dealer's lot today. You guys understand? So hypothecation is you're telling the bank, The loan is against a particular property. Okay? So we're securing a loan against a particular property. But we are not giving up ownership of the property. Meaning it's ours. We get to use it, occupy, maintain it, take advantage, full advantage of what we just bought. Okay? The fact that you get to drive out of the dealer with the car and pay in installments over several years. The fact that you can sign on a house today, move into the house and pay it off in several years. That is called hypothecation. Okay? So hypothecation is getting a loan without giving up the property. So, I want the money, right? Money in my hand, and I want the property in my hand. I want both. That's hypothecation. Okay? Any questions here? Questions? YouTube questions? Zoom questions? Guys, so are we good so far? Great. Now, states, depending on the state you're in, it differs in their interpretation of who owns the mortgage property. So those that regard the mortgage as a lien held by the mortgagee, which is the lender, I'll explain that better in a second, against the property which is owned by the mortgagor, the borrower, these are called lien theory states. That means there's a mortgage and they put a lien against the house. Remember the grip against the house, right? So they put a lien. Those that regard the mortgage document as a conveyance of ownership from the mortgagor to the mortgagee, these are called title theory states. Now, some states interpret ownership of mortgage property from a point of view that combines both the title and lien theory. A valid mortgage or trust deed of financing arrangement requires a note as evidence of the debt, as I said before, so the loan, and the mortgage or trust deed as evidence of the collateral pledge. What is a collateral pledge? A house. What is the evidence of the debt? The loan. Okay? So note, as we were saying, in addition to executing a mortgage or trust deed, the borrower signs a promissory note for the amount borrowed. So that's the IOU. I owe you money. Okay? The amount of the loan typically is the difference between the purchase price and the down payment. And the promissory note creates the personal liability. Promissory note creates the personal liability for the borrower to repay the loan. So the IOU or the promissory note says, I owe you money and I pledge to pay that money. Right? I promise to pay that money. Okay? We're good on that, right? Creates the personal liability to pay the money. That's what the IOU or note, also known as bond, right? Bond promise. And then there's mortgage. And the mortgage is the lien. Okay, so mortgage is a legal document stating the pledge of the borrower or the mortgagor to the lender, the mortgagee. The mortgage document pledges or promises or guarantees that the borrower's ownership interest in the real estate in question as collateral against the performance of the debt obligation. So let's address mortgagor and mortgagee. I'm going to ask one more time. Who is the mortgagor? Let me know in the chat. Who is the mortgagor and who's the mortgagee? Who is the mortgagor? Who is the mortgagee? All right, bunch of answers. YouTube, there's 3-4 people watching. Let me know what's your answer. Who's the mortgagor and who's the mortgagee? All right, owner, lender. Okay, I got you. I asked mortgagor, mortgagee, so you put owner, lender. Got it. You're trying to save space there. That's what it is. I'd like to know what happened here. I had it all in order. Sorry guys, just 1 second. As you guys are answering those. Alright, I guess I'm gonna have to draw all over again. I don't know. There you go. Alright, cool. So let's make this clear. Who's the mortgagor? Who's the mortgagee? You guys gonna prepare 2 columns. Okay? You need to have enough space between them. Write this down. You need 2 columns. I'm gonna zoom in a second, but do 2 columns with enough space, and then 1, 2, 3 rows. Then enough space in the second row, the middle row, to have like 3 or 4 things written on it. I'll zoom in a second. All right, so let's see. Right on top, you make a drop. Oh no, that was not it. Okay, wrong song. So you're gonna write in the 2 columns. First one, only a few of you laugh. Okay, good. Glad only a few did. So you're gonna write gives up the property or gives up the house, and the other column you're gonna write receives the house. Badur is still smiling at it. Okay. Picturing the whole video clip already, right? Yeah, sucks. Daniela's also smiling. So. Alright, so 1 column gives up the property, the other column receives the property. And right here at the bottom, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to do receives on the left, which is receives money, and on the right, gives up money. Receives money, gives up money. Let's figure out who's the OR or mortgagor and who's the E or mortgagee. We're going to go to the column that says gives up the property. And the first one we have here, guys, is the grantor. Now, the grantor is the one who grants, the one who gives up the house, the seller. Grantor, OR, grantor gives up the property, gives up the house. Now, who are they giving up the property to? They're giving up the property to the grantee, the buyer. Isn't that true? The buyer receives the property. The seller gives up the property. The buyer receives the property. So that's the E, receives the property. Back to the left, we have the lessor. Lessor is the landlord. Lessor is the landlord. And look again, OR. Lessor, landlord. and they give up the property to the lessee, the tenant. Isn't that right? When I rent space to a tenant, I'm giving up the right to that space temporarily for the tenant to occupy the space. So, lessor is the landlord, lessee is the one that benefits from the property, the tenant. And if we follow this logic, then we have the mortgagor. The OR, mortgagor, is the one that gives up the house, gives up the property, pledges the property. Okay? So that's the borrower or the buyer. Okay? And they give up the property to the mortgagee, who is the lender. The lender receives the property if you do not pay. Right? So, what we're trying to say is that OR, every time you see OR, is short for owner. Every time you see OR, is short for the owner. The seller gives up the property. The landlord gives up the property. The borrower, who is about to be the owner, gives up the property. Okay? What do they get in return? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the borrower, but the grantor, the seller, what do they receive when they sell the property? They receive money. Right? The lessor, the landlord, every month receives money. And the mortgagor, the one giving up the house, receives a loan. A loan is money. On this side, we had grantee, lessee, mortgagee. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the buyer, in order to buy, they must give up money, right? The tenant, in order to occupy the space, every month they must give up money. And the lender, the mortgagee, if they want that security of the house, they'll give you a loan, and that loan is money. So this is the cycle. It's very simple, the cycle. The ones in this column represents ownership, and they give up the property for the buyer, the tenant, or the lender to benefit from the property. And what these people do, they give up the money to the ones on the left. All right, so it's very simple to understand. Say bookie. There you go. But yes. So let's see if you guys understand now. I'm going to ask again, and later on I'll ask again one more time. Who is, just one last time, please, and I want everybody to answer. Who is the mortgagor? Who is the mortgagor? I know I'm being a pain, and some of you are like, oh, Bruno, come on, I already got it. Can we move forward? But if you guys don't understand it, it's tough to move forward. So who is the mortgagor? Mortgagor, O-R. The O-R in there? Are you okay, Miguel? The O-R in there? That's it, the or whatever he said, okay? That's the mortgagor. Okay. So borrower, Brandon, you wrote bank. Mortgagor. Okay, Brandon's not there. Okay, so I'll address him later. Oh, there he is. Okay. And you're in space, so it's tough to see you. So it's not the bank, it's the borrower. The mortgagor is the borrower. Okay. Very good. And the mortgagee is whoever receives the property as collateral, which is the lender. Isn't the mortgagor the one who provides the loan? No. So let me go over here again. That's why, see why I don't want to move forward? This is exactly it, because that one little difference of OR and E could make a huge difference when trying to understand the question. So, on this side, the ORs are all those that give up the property. So do you think the bank gives up the property? Every time you see the OR, means gave up the property, is the owner of the property or about to be the owner of the property, the borrower. They're giving up the property. Who receives the property as collateral? The mortgagee. Okay, so we give the house. Okay, we give the house. And what does the mortgagee give us? Money, right? Another way to remember this, for some people might be helpful, for me it doesn't make a difference here. But another way to remember is that for mortgagee, there's two E's. Just like in lender, there's two E's. Okay? Mortgagor is the borrower, right? Again, OR. Okay? But who gives up the house is the borrower. Who receives the house as collateral is the bank. Who gives up money? The bank. Who receives that money to buy the house? The borrower. The mortgagor is the one creating the mortgage, is the one pledging the house, the one giving up the house. And again, we're going to go over this several times. I just want to make sure you guys are good. Okay. So what happens? Great, Ruth. Perfect. So what happens in the flow of a mortgage transaction? There's the mortgagor, which by now you guys already know is the borrower, right? Or buyer, okay? Mortgagor. And the mortgagor gives up the house in exchange for the loan. Who gives the loan? The bank, lender, or creditor. They're all pretty much the same. All right. Now, let's look at this one real quick. If here, the borrower gives up the property to the bank and the bank gives money, what happens when we finish making the payments? When the balance is zero, what happens? The bank or the mortgagee has to cancel the note and the mortgage. So the bank has to say, that's it. We rip the paper. You don't owe me anything. And the grip I had on your property that you pledged, remember the grip I had on the property you pledged? The grip I now release. The property is yours, free of any liens. At least from our lien. If you have other liens, if you have other loans that you owe, if you have other judgments that you owe, then that's on you. But ours, the money you owed us, is paid. Free and clear. We canceled the obligation. So no more lien, okay? So cancellation of mortgage, note to mortgage, and cancellation of lien. So release the grip. Okay. Next we have deed of trust. Now, in certain states, deed of trust is not used at all. Right? State of New Jersey, for instance, we don't use it here. We use mortgages. But you need to understand what a deed of trust is for several reasons. One is part of general real estate, and if somebody, number two is if somebody comes from another state where they use deed of trust, you need to understand, okay, this is similar to a mortgage. So deed of trust in other states is the equivalent to a mortgage. Okay? And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's deed, and deed simply means it's a document that transfers ownership. Okay? It's a document that transfers ownership. Who owns what? That's what the deed will do. Hey, there was a transfer from party A to party B, right? But deed of trust, when it says deed of trust, that means there's money involved. There's a mortgage involved. Okay? It's just that these are used in states that have the title theory instead of the lien theory state. Okay? There's a trustor, there's a trustee, and there's a beneficiary. Okay? Who's the beneficiary? See, while the loan is in place, the trustee, which is a third party, holds the title on behalf of the lender, who's the beneficiary of the trust. Now, where do we find these in the everyday application? Cars. See, when we buy a car, right, is the title under our name? If you buy a car, if you finance a car right now, the title is under our name? No. The title is under a third party that says, if you don't pay, I'll come and get the car. Once you finish paying, the title is released back to you. So, deed of trust is very similar to a car title. There's a beneficiary. So this is how things flow. If you guys remember, the lien holder, yep. If you guys remember, we had mortgage and mortgage directly to mortgagor, right? Mortgagee, mortgagor, and vice versa, directly. Here is a little different. In a deed of trust, the beneficiary, which is the lender, gives money to the trustor, which is the borrower, and the borrower says, I owe you, bank. I confirm that I owe you. I promise to pay you. So there's a confirmation here. Now, what we're going to do as well is instead of giving the deeds, the mortgage to the bank, we're giving a deed of trust. So we're giving up the house to a third party called the trustee. This is a third party. And what happens when we have this versus a mortgage, what happens is foreclosure happens way faster. Okay? In the states that we use mortgages, we go through what's called a judicial proceeding. So we go through court in order to foreclose. In the states where we use deed of trust, we bypass the court. I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Let's say you finish paying off. You finish paying off your loan. What happens? Well, first of all, who's the trustor? It's the same thing as the mortgagor, right? Trustor or mortgagor are the same. So in this case, it's the borrower. Okay, because trustor or mortgagor, so similar. Okay, sorry, this is different. To the mortgagor, right? So the borrower finished making the payments to the lender. Makes payments to lender. Once the balance is zero, right? If you guys remember, in the mortgage, they cancel the promissory note and they cancel the mortgage. So they release the grip, correct? Here is the same thing, except it's not the lender that does it, it's the trustee. This third party they're going to do a deed of reconveyance, right? And by now you guys know what conveyance means, right? What does conveyance mean? Let me know. Do you understand this word? Conveyance. Block right there. The word conveyance, what does it mean? Transfer, very good. So deed of reconveyance is where the trustee is transferring the property back to the trustor. Deed of reconveyance is, okay, congratulations, you finished making the payments to the lender. We are transferring the property back to your name. So just like a car, same thing. Once you finish paying the lien holder, right? Once you finish paying the lien holder, the title is now transferred to your name, right? Deed of reconveyance. Title is now transferred to your name. Any questions before I move forward? Questions? No? All right, great. All right, the financial components of a mortgage loan include principal, interest and interest rate, points, term, and payments. So the principal is the amount of money borrowed. So if you're borrowing $200,000 to buy the house, then that's your principal. And every time you make payments towards your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. But principal is there. So you're paying down the principal, right? So your payment slowly reduces the loan balance or whatever the remaining balance is. Interest and interest rate, right? Interest is a charge for the use of lender's money. So I have this in green. Because financially, every time you see interest, it's the same thing as saying, you're paying me to use my money. I'll give you money, you pay me interest. It's a charge for using my money. Now, let me ask you something. If I borrow something from you, let's say I borrowed the mouse. I borrowed this from you, right? And you tell me, well, Bruno, it costs $1 a minute. Great, it's a very expensive mouse, by the way, top of the line. But Bruno, it costs $1 a minute. And I say, okay, well, I'm going to use it for 2 minutes. How much do I have to pay you? $2, correct? $1 a minute. If I use it for 30 years, then we need to calculate how much that $1 a minute for 30 years are going to be. So interest is only charged for how long you use the money. If you prepay, just like your credit cards, if you send extra money, if you prepay the amount that you borrowed, so the loan balance, if you prepay it, then you will pay less interest. Okay, remember this. Interest is only charged for as long as you use it, for the use of the money. Interest is only charged for as long as you use it. Okay? Now, because the interest rate on a mortgage loan does not reflect the full cost of the loan to the borrower, federal law requires the lender on a residential property to compute and disclose what's called the annual percentage rate, or APR. Okay? So every loan must include the APR. Every loan must include APR, annual percentage rate. Why? Because it's the full cost of the loan. There's something called interest, pure interest or base interest, and that's the bank charging you 5%. Right? That's what they'll tell you, that the loan costs 5%. But then they have other finance charges. The other finance charges could be an additional 1.19%. So that means your APR is 6.19%. This right here is the pure or basic interest. APR includes all the charges. This is the one you need to know. And the reason why I'm saying that, you calculated how much it was for 30 years? Got it, thank you. You sure it's only that? Something sounds off. You sure? All right, now you're gonna make me calculate. $15,000, it sounds a little off. Yeah, I knew something was off. Or 15 million. There's a zero missing there. But even that is a little off. It's actually 518,000. But that was not bad. It's still an expensive mouse, regardless of how you use it or how you see it. All right. So again, APR. The reason why they have to give you this. Let's say you go to Bank of America. Daniela, I charge extra for spectators. Kick them out. Okay. I was joking. Stay there. All right, so the reason I was talking about pure basic interest and APR. And we're going to repeat this several times as well. Imagine you go to Bank of America. And then you go to Wells Fargo. Bank of America charges you 5% interest. And Wells Fargo charges you 5% interest. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between these two? I'm going to go to Bank of America. They charge me 5% interest. I'm going to go to Wells Fargo. They charge me 5% interest. Okay. Just put this here. All right. What's the difference between these two? 5 and 5. 5 and 5. Bank of America rips you off. Lula, so does Wells Fargo. They don't care, neither one of them. Wells Fargo even creates fake accounts for you. Right? And nobody gets arrested. But you go ahead, you try to rob somebody. Right? Anyway. Ahmed says, no difference so far. And Ed mentioned, wait, what happened to 1.19? Right? There's no 1.19. And that is correct, Ed. Here's the thing. Bank of America might have charges, right? They might say 0.74 in charges, while Wells Fargo might say 0.28 in charges. So this means APR is 5.74%. That's the true cost of the loan. While here, the APR is 5.28%. Do you now see the difference? Do you now see the difference between Bank of America's 5% and Wells Fargo's 5%? This is the reason why, the APR is the reason why when you apply for a credit card, it comes with the APR in big, bold letters above, larger than anything else, right? Because you're entitled to know what is the true cost of obtaining credit. So yes, Ruth, loan charges could be different. Every bank and every loan could have different loan charges. Think about it. If I intend to keep the loan for 30 years is one thing. If I intend to sell the loan to somebody else later, it's another thing. If I have to charge, let's say, management fees, servicing fees, whatever fees. Oh, congratulations, here's the key fees, right? They're going to put whatever fees there that every bank is entitled to charge for whatever carrying the loan costs they have, right? So again, it could be 5.74 with Bank of America, or it could be 5.28 with Wells Fargo. Am I telling you these are the charges? No, I'm just telling you as an example that 5% in one place and 5% in another could be very different. And that's the reason we just read that the federal law requires a lender on a residential property to compute and disclose the actual annual percentage rate, which includes all the charges. Okay? So this is mandatory. All right. Don't they give you a chart amortization? Yeah, they're supposed to give you all that stuff. Yep. But again, you grab that chart amortization, you get that APR, you go now to Wells Fargo and say, hey, Wells Fargo, this is what I got over at B of A. Let's compare. Right? Hey, Chase, this is what I got over at Wells Fargo and B of A. Let's compare. All right? You should be entitled to compare the different charges before you accept them. That's what it is. Just like a credit card, they give you the announcement of what it is, and then you either accept the credit card and the interest rates that they're charging you or not. Up to you. All right, Zeline just wrote 3. 3? Oh, he just wanted to write something. You're just saying, hey, I'm here. That's what it was. All right. Many states have laws against usury. What is usury? Let me take this out. All right, usury is literally being used and abused by lenders. Okay? So usury is being used and abused by lenders. So unlawful charges, Lula, loan sharks, yep, absolutely, used and abused. All right, hold on, we got to go back. Tina says, I thought APR was interest. I'm a little confused about that. So APR is interest, basic interest, plus loan charges. So if I'm your lender, right? For me to hold on to this loan and not sell to anybody else in the future, or for me to service the loan, it's going to cost me an extra 1.19% above what the average national rate is, for instance. All right? So instead of 5%, which is the average national rate in this example, I'm going to charge you an additional 1.19. What is that? It's called APR. Right? So APR is not the interest. APR is the true interest, the true cost of borrowing money. How much does it cost you every single year? Got it? It's right here in green, again. Because the interest rate on the mortgage loan does not reflect the full cost of the loan, right? Federal law requires a lender on a residential property to compute and disclose the APR, which includes all other finance charges in addition to the basic interest. Okay, so basic interest, 5%, and then there's finance charges or loan charges. We'll go over them more in detail in a little bit, but the loan charges, again, it's like if I'm going to hold on to it or if I'm going to sell it, I'm going to have a servicer. Do I need, think about it being a landlord, and you don't want to maintain the property, so you hire a property manager. Now it's going to cost you more for that house, right? So in this scenario, they're transferring whatever their cost is for that property manager, they're transferring that to you. Let's think about it that way. Okay? That's what it is. But we'll go over that later. So APR is the total of the, yes, correct. Lula, yes, correct as well. Servicing fees, yep. Let's see. Mr. Badouri wrote, Usury. I'll just go with car business. Yes. Period. Car business, period. They take advantage of you like crazy. So usury is loan sharks, is charging, when you see the word usury, excessive interest, knowing that you will not be able to pay. Okay. Next we have points. What are points? So points, hold on, guys, make sure your cameras are on, please. Otherwise it doesn't count towards your hours. One day I'm going to have one class, one, that will listen beginning to end. I promise, one day. I will not spend 100 hours repeating, please keep your camera on. Please pay attention. One day. That's my ultimate dream by now. All right? My ultimate dream, my ultimate goal is not to have to repeat, children, turn your cameras on. I see that with I'm telling you, I see that with my 6-year-old daughter all the time. Right? And Francesca just said, yes, I know. I see that all the time. I understand how frustrating those teachers are. No, honey, it's the button right there. Please turn it on. Right there. Yep, you got it. Right? That's what they do with my daughter. And then you can see the teacher roll her eyes like, oh my God. And that's with kids, which we have to understand. With adults, yeah, difficult. All right. Anyway, where were we? Points. So what is a point? A point equals 1% of a loan amount. Okay? Not the purchase price. Okay, so 1 point equals 1% of the loan amount, not the purchase price. So when we calculate, smile balls, I'm always smiling. So when we calculate the points, we calculate out of the loan amount, never from the purchase price. I'm going to explain that better in a second, but write this down somewhere. Points, or 1 point equals 1% of loan amount, not the purchase price. Because that's the biggest mistake we'll make, and I'm going to repeat this 100 times too. The biggest mistake you'll make is you always calculate the points from the purchase. Right? You always do that, but it's not. A point is from the loan amount. All right, so what is a point, or why do we have points? Let's say the current interest rate is 6%. Current interest rate is 6%, and you're trying to pay less than 6%. What the bank will do is charge you something called a discount point, right? Whenever you want to pay less than what the bill is, you ask for discounts, right? Right? So the bank says, yeah, I'll give you a discount if you give me points up front. So for instance, a discount point is 1% of the loan amount. So if the loan is $100,000, I'm asking you to reduce from 6 to, I'm not going to give you the exact numbers right now, but from 6 to 5.75, like, so you drop quarter percent, I need $1,000 up front. So here's your down payment plus $1,000, and I'll drop the interest rate for the lifetime of the loan by 0.25%. And you're probably thinking, well, 0.25% is not enough. Well, it might be. If that, instead of 6%, right, for, 30 years at 6%, let me change this. The payment could be, for whatever it is, I'm just going to give you an example. The payment could be $1,000 a month, right? And then for 30 years at 5.75%, the payment could be, let's say, $950 a month. Now, again, in your mind, oh, it's only $50 difference. Yeah, but look at this. You gave me $1,000. You gave me, the lender, $1,000 to reduce $50 a month. $50 times 360 months, because that's 30 years. Right? Let's put in the calculator. 50 times 360 equals $18,000. Not a bad investment, huh? I'm asking you, right? I'm asking you, give me $1,000 up front. And instead of paying 6% on this loan, you're going to pay 5.75 on this loan. So I dropped 0.25%, right? And that 0.25% over 30 years changed your payment from $1,000 to $950 every month. So technically, you saved, don't forget you put your initial investment, you saved $17,000 over the 30-year span. Okay? Again, most people live in the now, right? Most people live in the now, and that's why they cannot see that far ahead. For you, $50, like, why would I give $1,000 right now just to save $50? It doesn't make sense, right? For a person that's going to live there for the whole 30 years, it's $17,000 difference. It's cheaper than renting my mouse. Yes, absolutely. Way cheaper. Any questions? You guys understand why discount points? Questions? Why discount points? Let me know in the chat. Why would the bank want to lose money? So the bank does not lose money, they're actually gaining money. Remember, most people, let's think of, first of all, what is interest? Interest is a charge for using somebody else's money, right? So right there and then, the bank's not losing money. They're making 5% or 6% or 7%, whatever. So they're not losing money. They're making money. All they're saying is, you want a better rate, and that will secure us, actually secures us as a lender, because it's easier to pay $950 than it is to pay $1,000. Again, it's only $50 difference, right? But when you cough, when you sneeze and go to the hospital, those $50 make a huge difference for you to buy your medicine, as an example. So you're saving money by giving me $1,000 up front, and I'm securing you as a borrower for 30 years. With a rate that's affordable, as an example, right? So I'm securing more money in that instance. I get paid more up front. And again, this is over 30 years, okay? So over 30 years, this is what happens. You borrowed $300,000 for 30 years, right? Right here, this is interest. Right here, this is principal. So what we're saying is the first years of a mortgage, they're interest. So if I'm already going to charge you interest and you give me $1,000 up front, I'm making more money. Because if around the year 15, if you decide to refi, I only got paid until year 15. I cannot charge you. Remember, interest I can only charge for as long as you use the money. So the more money I can get up front, the better it is for me. You only start paying principal, like really chunks of the principal, once you reach year 21. Until then, it's more interest than principal. So are the banks losing money? No, they're just not making as much money if they give you a lower rate. That's it. Okay? So it's a benefit for all. Hold on just one second. All right, so there's questions here. Could a discount be bigger? I'm going to talk about that right now. How many points can we buy? That depends on the lender. And even then, it's still a huge win for the banks. Yeah, it's always a win for the banks, no matter what. All right, so can the discount be bigger? So right here, you guys don't need to know how to calculate this right now. It's not going to be in the state exam. But pretty much every point reduces 1/8 of the interest. So 1/8 of the interest would be, let's say you want to reduce 0.5%. As it says here, for you to reduce 0.5%, you needed to pay 4 points. Right? So you want to reduce 0.5% on the interest from 7 to 6.5. Yeah, you got to pay 4 points of that loan up front, plus the down payment. So in this case, if it's $100,000, right? If it's $100,000 in this case, you would pay $4,000 up front in order to save 0.5% for the lifetime of the loan. So it's a trade-off. $4,000 up front in order to save for the lifetime of the loan. You got it? Celine? Are you typing or oh, got it? Okay, yep. No, you didn't get it? Okay. So Tina says, so to buy points, you pay up front, so you save money later in less interest. Correct. Okay. Because this right here is one time up front, right? That's what it is. But instead of paying $1,000 because it was 7%, you're going to be paying $950 because it's now 6.5%, right? For 30 years. So there's a trade-off. There's a trade-off there. Think about it this way, guys. You ever been to an arcade? You played arcades, games? Anybody? Celine, have you ever played arcade games? All right, or pool or ping pong or whatever it is. You're just at a place where there's games, and they tell you, look, for 5 minutes, right? For 5 minutes, it's $5, right? But for 15 minutes, it's only $10. It's like it's the upsell. They make less money, but they're making you pay more money. Because a lot of people go there and pay the $5 and, oh man, didn't work out. So they walk away. By charging you the $10, they give you extra turns or whatever, but they secure the higher pay. You understand? So they're giving you something to guarantee their end. They're giving you a discount, right? Instead of paying $15 for that ride, right, for 15 minutes, they're going to charge you $10 for the same 15 minutes because it was 5 plus 5 plus 5, right? $5, 5 minutes, $5, 5 minutes, $5, 5 minutes. So that's $15 for 15 minutes. And they say no. If you buy it as a bundle, if you buy right now up front, we will reduce how much you have to pay for the amount of minutes that you're going to use. Does that make sense? A little bit better? Yes? Okay, cool. Tina, what are the requirements to buy the points? Anyone can? So I'll tell you what, today, because the interest rate is at 2.75, it's so low, right? On average, right? It could be a little lower, and I'll explain better tomorrow. Because the interest rate is so low, the trade-off of the points might not make sense at all. Unless you have like a $10 million loan where any 0.25% or 0.5% makes a huge difference, right? But if your loan is $500,000 and you drop 0.25%, if you can, 0.25%, it doesn't make that much of a difference, right? You're going to pay upfront for something that's already like the lowest that you can get. You understand? So can anybody buy points? Yes, they're available everywhere. I just don't think it makes sense for you to do it at this point. If the interest rates were higher, then you want to reduce. If the interest rates were, this is like 2007, 2006 interest rates, right? So at this point, yeah, you're going to pay down as much as you can up front for the lifetime of the loan, because we don't know what interest rates will do later, right? But if you're already at 2%, how much lower can you go, right? Got it? All right, next. Term. So the loan term is for how long the loan is going to be. Payments, it shows the loan term, loan amount, and the interest rate combined to determine the periodic payment amount. Okay, don't worry so much about this. And we're going to go to promissory note. You guys already know promissory note is I owe you. I promise to pay you. I owe you money. A borrower who executes a promissory note is the maker or payer of the note. The lender is the payee. All right? You guys are getting used to these terms, the E's, the ORs, and so on. To be properly executed, all parties who have an interest in the property should sign the note. So if there's 3 of us that are borrowing money for the purpose of purchasing this home, 3 of us must sign the note. And what do you have in the note? Wait, Ruth said so many. I'm a little lost. So many what? So the note sets forth the loan amount, the term of the loan, the method and timing of repayment, the interest rate paid. Oh, the E's and the R's. Got it. So hold on. Yeah, Ruth. So there's so many E's and ORs. But if you understand the concept, the OR is the one that creates the document, right? Or gives up something, right? And the E is the one that receives or benefits from that, whatever the document was drafted. So that's what I keep on repeating, E's and ORs. Who's the OR, right? The payer, in this case, is ER, not OR. But the payer or maker is the one that's paying. So the one that, if you ever wrote a check, right? Because a promissory note is like a check. If you ever wrote a check, it says right here, right? Pay to the order of, right? And then sometimes here, where it says for you to sign, sometimes depending on the check, it says payer. Because that's the one that's creating the check. Payer. Just like your wages, right? Your wages, there's the employer, right? And you're the employee. Look at that, another and E, right? The employer is the payer, right? You're the payee because you received the check. The concept is always the same. Who created the check? Right? Who created the check? The employer. Right? Who receives the check? The payee, which is the employee, and so on. So the E's and ORs are easy to identify once you understand the concept here. So the promissory note, sorry, the promissory note includes all of these things. So it's pretty much all the details of the loan. The amount, for how long, how often are we paying, the interest rate, and I promise to pay or go get the mortgage. So these will be in the promissory note, but also will be in the mortgage, which is the right to repay the loan balance, charge for late payments, conditions of default, notifications and cures of default, or others. Those will be all listed there. Mortgage document and trust deed or deed of trust. Or deed of trust. Okay? Okay, look right here. It says a borrower who executes the mortgage is the mortgagee. Right? The borrower is the mortgagee. Is that correct? Anybody? The lender is the mortgagee. So the mortgagor is the borrower. Very good. Now, in a trust deed, the borrower is the trustor and the lender is the beneficiary. We already went over that in that graph, image that we went over before, right? Now, the mortgage or trust document identifies the property as security. We already got this. Giving both the legal description and the mailing address. Guys, who remembers this? What are the 3 methods of legal description? Let me know in the chat. 3 methods of legal description. Let me know in the chat. Meets and bounds. Okay, everybody got that one. Can we progress from it? We got meets and bounds. That's 1. Yes, correct. Rectangular survey method. Rectangular survey method. And the recorded plat of subdivision. Very good. All right, cool. So these are the 3 methods of legal description that must be included with every mortgage, with every deed. Okay? Now, the mortgage is going to include the debt amount, the term of the loan, and the method and timing of payments. If anybody's still confused with these, like legal descriptions and stuff like that, remember, you always have the class replays. Go watch the replays as soon as you have time, right? It's very important to listen to things over and over again. It will make sense the 2nd time, the 3rd time. It will start making sense. Especially for those of you that never been involved in real estate at all, some of these terms might be confusing, okay? So definitely watch the replays. Ask questions. That's key. Okay. I promise you guys, the second time you listen to it, you're gonna be like, oh, that's what it is. Right? Promise. That's why I keep on bringing stuff back, and now, as you guys can tell, most of you answered right away. A couple of them, right? Starts making a difference. All right, next. The document, and we're talking about the mortgage document, does not usually does not usually provide the details of the payment amount, interest rate, or charges. Why? Because the mortgage represents the house, does not represent the loan. Okay? Okay, a couple of major clauses of a typical mortgage are the following. The payment of principal and interest and prepayment and late charges. That's going to be on the mortgage. Another thing that's going to be on the mortgage is, hey, we want money for taxes and insurance. We call this, so taxes and insurance. Sorry. We call this escrow account or impound. Impound or escrow. Whenever you see impound or escrow, we're talking about taxes and insurance. When you see the words impound or escrow account when it comes to a mortgage, and they'll tell you it's a mortgage, right? The term impound on the mortgage is related to, and the answer is going to be tax and insurance. Where do we place tax and insurance payments on the mortgage? In an impound account. Like, so this could be the same, but they will define on the loan or on the mortgage. When do you see impound or escrow? It's always for taxes and insurance. Because for everything else, we have PI. And PI is principal and interest. Now, if a loan has principal, interest, taxes, and insurance included, we call this a PD loan or PD payments. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance, they're bundled into one loan. PD payments or PITI. I'm sorry. Who holds the escrow account? The broker. No, this is beyond. So you're confusing. That's why I said mortgage. You're confusing the escrow or trust accounts that a broker must have for good faith deposits. This is for mortgages. Okay? Escrow, guys, pay attention. Escrow means third party. Escrow means third party. So if it's an escrow account, it's a third party account to deposit money that belongs to others. See, the bank collects principal interest, which is their amount. Principal and interest. It's the amount they want right here. Principal and interest. Right? That goes into their pockets to pay the balance and to pay the interest charge. But they might charge you for taxes and insurance. Does that stay in their pockets? No, it needs to be paid out to whom? To the city and the insurance company. So TI, taxes and insurance, right? Not the wrapper. Taxes and insurance needs to be paid into an escrow account. So they collect the money, right, from you, right here. They collect the money. And what they do is take the escrow money, which is tax and insurance, and they put it aside. They'll take the interest to pay themselves. They take the principal to pay the balance on the loan. And then if there's late charges, they'll apply the end towards late charges. But they split it into tranches according to where it needs to go. You got it? But out of your $4,000 payment every month, as an example, $4,000 payments, the first $1,000, as an example, goes straight to taxes and insurance. The remaining $3,000, they're going to take $2,000 for interest, $500 for principal, and $500 for late charges, as an example. Okay? So remember, principal, interest, tax, and insurance. Tax and insurance, escrow, or impound account. They're put into a separate account to pay quarterly for the taxes, semi-annually, or annually for the insurance, depending on what they have. Lula asked, most conventional loans have PITI accounts. So most FHA loans and VA loans, all FHA loans and VA loans have PITI. Some conventional loans, they might have it separate, like you pay your own taxes and insurance. But yes, the majority of all the loans, the majority of them, principal, interest, tax, and insurance are always included. Okay? And that's to protect themselves. After 1 year of payments on time in a conventional loan, after 1 year of payments, you want to separate it? They might say yes. They might say no. We don't know. But yes, most of them are included. It's just to protect themselves, their position. All right? Another thing you're going to find, guys, is the application of the payments. Like I said, the charges and the liens, hazard and property insurance, occupation, preservation, maintenance, and protection of the property. So these are the obligations that you guys have to maintain the property. And if you do renovate the property, you have to contact the lender before you make those improvements. Protection of lender's rights in the properties, and mortgage insurance. Have you heard about this? Mortgage insurance? Okay, half of the class has no camera. Same. I'm going to take all your points away. That's it. All of them away. That's it. Done. You know what's the funniest thing? I say no camera and they turn it on right away. Like, oh, he's watching. I'm always watching. That's it. I'm everywhere. All right. FHL, $350 extra. It could be more, it could be less. It depends on the amount that you borrowed. But yes, usually it's a percentage of what you borrowed. Yep. But you can get rid of it. There's ways to get rid of it. One is called refinancing. The other one is having enough equity and asking them to drop it. So mortgage insurance is called PMI. Mortgage insurance PMI. Or MIP. You're like, Bruno, that's the same thing, you just rearranged it. No. PMI is for conventional mortgages. MIP is for FHA mortgages. Route 21, I was missing the sound. This is why I cannot live in the woods. I'll have to put that sound on my phone all the time, just to remind me that there's a civilization out there. All right. So PMI, if you guys see right here, the lender may require the borrower, so they might ask you to obtain private mortgage insurance, PMI. Now, mortgage insurance protects the lender, not you, protects the lender against loss of a portion of the loan. So 20 to 25% in case of the borrower default. So if you stop paying, if it goes into foreclosure, the first 20 to 25% are covered by PMI. That's what it says. Protects the lender for that loss. Okay? Now, look what it says. Private mortgage insurance generally applies to loans that are not backed by the FHA or by the VA. Okay? So PMI, private mortgage insurance, does not apply to FHA or VA. Okay? For FHA, we have MIP, which is mortgage insurance premium. And when do we put PMI? When our down payment is less than 20%. So the bank says, well, 20% because of, you guys remember the cycle of the market, right? Right now we're up here, but eventually we'll drop, and then eventually we'll come back up, and so on, right? So this fluctuation is anywhere between 10 to 15%. Sometimes on bad years, we'll go 20%. On really bad years, we have a 2009 crash. But on average, there's 10 to 15% drop. So what the bank is saying, and they've been saying this for years, is that if I lend you more than 80%, it becomes very risky, because if you default, how do I recover money? Okay? Now, if you gave me 20% down payment, that means your loan is 80%. If you default And even if the market went down, you can still sell the property or refinance and everybody's happy. You understand? But if I give you 90% and the market drops 15%, now it's negative, it's underwater, it's difficult for you to sell, right? And it's difficult for you to refinance, so we're both stuck. And that's the reason why we get private mortgage insurance. All right? Next page, we have transfer of the property or beneficial interest in the borrower. So if a borrower sells or transfers its interest in the property without lender's approval, the lender may demand immediate full repayment of the loan balance. What we're saying is, I own the property and I owe Bank of America $300,000. But today I closed and I sold the property to Daniela. Okay? So Daniela, you're the new owner of the house that I used to own. Simple. If I don't pay Bank of America has the option of foreclosing or demanding the payment. Now, how can Bank of America foreclose if you are the new owner? It's a little difficult, isn't it? No, because the mortgage is a lien against the property. If the lien was not cleared, it's still against the property. So you, future owner, Danielle in this case, could still lose the property because I did not pay off Bank of America. And that's why when there's a transfer of ownership, right? When there's a transfer of ownership, or as we call alienation, when there's a transfer of ownership or alienation, the bank says the full amount of the balance is due at the time of sale. So alienation or due on sale clause means I used to own the property, but I still have a balance on the loan. Now I sold the property to you and the bank wants to get paid. So if I made money, I got to pay them, due on sale. Okay, the whole amount is due on the sale. Lula, isn't there a title search first? Yeah, but we might agree to different type of arrangements. Doesn't mean that the bank needs to agree. All right. So I could have said to Daniela, hey Daniela, listen, my payment is $2,000. I need to move on. I need to go. I'm getting out of Jersey. I'm going to go to California, right? And I don't want to sell to just anyone. I want somebody that takes care of the property because I built the property. I whatever the reason might be, right? So Daniela, would you like to take over? It's only $2,000. It's a nice house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, garage, all that good stuff that can come in a nice house like mine, right? Period. Daniela says, yep, I want it. If I don't say anything to the lender, then Daniela is now the one making the payments to the bank. That's called a loan assumption. He assumed the loan, right? Or subject to my current mortgage. So even if she does a title search, I already told her I still have to pay Bank of America, right? But I'm asking you, Daniela, that you take over my payments. If you don't pay them, you lose the house. Same thing as a regular loan. The difference is, did we tell the bank or did we not tell the bank? If we told the bank, then the bank knows Daniela is the one that took over. If we did not tell the bank does not need to negotiate. The bank can say, give me my money now. Let Daniela figure out her own way, right? So that's the only difference. There could be a transfer with an existing mortgage. Okay? And release right here is when you finish paying off the mortgage. Obviously, they must release that grip that I told you. They must release the grip and let the property be free and clear. All right, guys? We're going to go into a quick break. Then we'll come back to initiating a mortgage loan. Do you have any questions before going to the break? No questions? We're good? All right. Joel, your camera is not on. Camera on, please. All right, guys. So if there's no questions, It is now 7:32 almost. So got 13 minutes, 7:45. We're gonna be back, okay? 7:45, we will be back. For those of you on YouTube, I'm gonna end the session, create a new one in a little bit. See you guys.